If you can't figure out your purpose, figure out your passion, for your passion will lead you right into your purpose. That is a quote by Bishop T.D. Jakes. Welcome to Trina Talk. This is the podcast where guests share their stories of pursuing their passions, living a fulfilled life, and empowering others. Each week, I talk with inspiring leaders, business owners, and people with amazing stories from around the world in unscripted conversations as they share their successes and failures. This podcast is all about empowering you to keep striving in your personal and professional life. And I am your host, Trina L. Martin. Hello. Welcome to Trina Talk. This is episode 97. Before I get started with this week's episode, I would like to tell all of you who have been asking me, how do I start a podcast? Or what do I need to do to live stream? I have the answer for you. I am offering a special price on my 1-hour tech assessment. This tech assessment will do a Zoom call and you will get to talk with me one-on-one and ask me any questions that you may have on starting your own podcast or live streaming. To take advantage of this opportunity, go to tech.trinalmartin.com. The topic of this week's episode is Uncover Your Purpose. My guest this week is Misty Sansom. Misty is a writer and life purpose coach who helps people to figure out exactly what they're meant to do in life and how to make it happen. Misty's approach to purpose, spirituality, and personal growth is practical, down to earth, and simple to follow. Her work has been featured in the Huffington Post, The Daily Guru, Mind, Body, Green, and more. Hi, Misty. Welcome to Trina Talk.
Hey, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate your time.
I really appreciate you being with me, seeing that you're in New Zealand. And so I know there's a big time difference. So I really appreciate you being here with me. So you are a life purpose coach. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. Yeah. So my whole focus is on helping people uncover exactly what their purpose is and help them find a way to bring it to life in a way that suits their personality and their current lifestyle and where they are, where they want to be.
So how do you exactly do that? Because I mean, and I guess that's why people go to you, because they don't know what they want to do. But how do you come to discern what their purpose is in a way to guide them to that?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And so the place that I always start with people is first getting clear on what your purpose isn't, or what purpose itself, that concept, is and isn't. Because I find that there are so many misconceptions around purpose and what it means and how you find it. And so I really like to start with kind of cutting through that. So the few things that I always want to tell people and sort of chat about is that your passions are not your purpose. You don't have to quit your day job, and you don't have to save the world. So just to dive into those a little bit more, we've all heard that message of, follow your passions and life will be amazing. And you just need to find what you're passionate about and really explore those passions and everything will work out perfectly. But if you are a person who has done this before, you've probably found that you've gone down a path of something that you do feel really passionate about, but inevitably you'll get to a point, you'll get to a point where you realize that it just doesn't feel right and something is still missing. There's still something that doesn't quite catch you in the way that you thought that it would. And so often in this situation, people will go back to square one and say, okay, well, I'm passionate about this, so maybe this is what I'm meant to do. And they will go down another path and another and another. And this is something that I had done so many times in life. The people who I work with, whether it's one-on-one or within the membership, they're also the kind of person who has pursued a passion and then just realized there's still something missing. And that something missing is purpose. It's that higher level concept. Your purpose is sort of like the overarching theme of your life. It's something that you feel compelled to do or share or inspire or create or build or, so on, teach or learn. And it's something that will stay with you your whole life. Whereas your passions are, they're your interests. They're very changeable, and you'll develop new passions in life, and you might have had passions that you've had, since you were younger. But there's a really big difference between the two. So I always want to sort of let people know that you can bring your purpose to life through your passions, but your passions aren't the purpose itself. So, yeah, that's where I like to start with people.
That's very interesting. And actually, that was a very good explanation as far as passion versus purpose, because many people think, well, okay, I'm passionate about this or I'm good at this, so this must be my purpose. But that's not always the case.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly it. And sometimes it's hard to articulate what it is that's missing, but people who have been in that situation all understand that feeling. They understand that feeling of like, yeah, this is something that I'm really good at, and this is something that I'm really passionate about. I've kind of ran headfirst into it, but it just doesn't feel right. So as we go through the process of uncovering what your purpose is, you will learn why that particular passion didn't quite work out, or you will learn why you didn't feel quite aligned, or why it wasn't quite resonating with you as you thought it would. So that's the place that I always start. The second place that I like to go to is around, you don't have to quit your day job. Because again, this is another really big misconception that I find people are hearing a lot, which is, you should find your purpose and then you should build a business around it. Or then that should be the, all-encompassing focus of your life. And the thing is, if you uncover what your purpose is and you are very interested in business, if business is a very big passion for you, then absolutely you can create a business around your purpose, and that's amazing. If you find your purpose and want to make it, what you do on a daily basis, again, perfect. That's totally fine. You can do that through a career if you want to. But you don't have to. You can still bring your purpose to life on a normal, everyday basis. It's just a way that you live, and still have a day job that's unrelated to your purpose. And that is totally fine. I really want to really highlight that for people, because I don't want people to feel that if they have a day job, or if they have a job that, for whatever reason they need to really keep, and it maybe isn't totally aligned with their purpose, I don't want those people to feel like therefore they can't live on purpose. Because, we all have bills to pay. There's always going to be stages in our life where we need a day job, where we need sort of an income coming in. And it might be, if we have very young kids, we might need that security. If we have a mortgage, we might need that extra security. So you can still do that, but you can also bring your purpose to life around that. Again, it's that overarching concept of your life. So it's something that you can just do and naturally live on a day-to-day basis. So that's another thing I really like to highlight to people.
Wow, that's really juicy. Now, my question is, how do I get to that point? Because I'm like you, probably where you were, probably about 10 years ago. I took a job and I thought this was going to be the best job for me. And I got there and I was like, oh God, I've made a mistake. And all
Mm.
my life, I've kind of said, what's my purpose? What's my purpose? So how do you work with someone like me at that stage to say, okay, let's find out what your purpose is? Because I was doing all the things that I thought was my purpose, as far as the career fields I had, the job, the degrees. And like you said, I always felt unfulfilled, but
Mm.
you can never put your finger on, okay, that's, for sure that's not it. How do you turn that into going, this is it? Or is it just kind of like you have to explore?
A little bit of both. So I take people through a very clear step-by-step process, and I'll run this. Let's run through it on this call. So I take people through this process, and I've done this with sort of hundreds of people now, and I also have an ebook that people can go through that process on their own, sort of self-paced learning. And again, there's been tons of people who have gone through that, and it really works. It's sort of one thing that I really like doing is taking a very intangible concept like purpose and making it very tangible and very clear and very simple and very easy to follow, because especially in the current situation that we're in, knowing what your purpose is so important. It's so important for our sense of value and well-being, and sort of where we want to head in life. So yeah, something I'm very passionate about, so I'd love to take you through that process. So I split it into 3 parts. The first part is about getting clear on who you are and what you want out of life. The second part is uncovering exactly what your purpose is, and also kind of troubleshooting where you might start to feel stuck and what happens if you can't quite figure it out. What do you do then? So that's part 2. And then part 3 is about bringing it to life. So how will you actually live your purpose on a day-to-day basis, and what will it look like a year, 5 years, 10 years down the track? So yeah, if it's okay with you, Trina, we can go through that process?
Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah, perfect. Okay, great. So the first place that I like to start in terms of uncovering, who you are, what you're about, and what you want out of life, is I like to start with understanding your personality. And, as people, we're always growing and changing, and we're going to grow, and change over the years, and that's fine. But you can get up to speed with who you are now. And the very easy and fun way to do that is through a personality test. And I like to use a Myers-Briggs based one. I know that, personality tests have their share of criticism, but it is just a very easy way to get a quick overview of different personality traits, strengths, weaknesses, what makes you tick, and also just to see some of those traits in a new light. So there might be things that you weren't consciously aware of, or there might be things that you sort of saw as a real failing, but then you kind of can see how actually it's this interesting trait that I have because of this. So the test that I use is 16 personalities. I like that one because it's free. You don't have to register. They give you a very comprehensive profile, and they also give you a percentage of each trait. So if you're familiar with the Myers-Briggs, it has people sitting on extroverted or introverted or feeling or thinking. And the thing that I really like about this particular one is that it gives you a percentage, so you can kind of see whether you're in the middle of the two and perhaps slightly more extroverted, or whether you're very, very, very introverted. And I feel like that extra information just helps to, again, see those traits in a new light and sort of really understand them. So that would be the first section that we do. I have a series of prompts that people go through to sort of dive into it a little bit more. And then we look at how you like to feel in life in general. So sort of thinking about do you like to feel safe? Do you like to feel empowered? Do you like to feel inspired or adventurous? Or do you like to feel free? Or do you like to feel, really focused and dedicated? So what are those feelings that are really key for you? So again, we have a series of prompts. We help people uncover a long list and then narrow down to sort of the top 3 to 5 feelings. And the really interesting about this exercise is you can, with hindsight, you can see why certain situations perhaps haven't worked out. And often, as you were mentioning, Trina, with the job and career and study, sometimes you can go through this exercise of identifying how you like to feel and then realize that you were perhaps in an industry that really clashed with those core feelings, or perhaps it was the role or the job or whatever it was. And you can kind of see, like, I understand why that situation just didn't sit right with me, because it was kind of really clashing, going against how I like to feel in life. So that's a really interesting exercise to go through. The next one is we look at your themes, which are your interests and passions and what you really love to do, what you're really interested in. And I tend to split them into intangible themes, like a love of learning, and then a tangible theme, like, a love of sport or a love of music, for instance. And again, it's really interesting if you kind of dive into those and pull apart, like, what exactly is it about learning that you really love? Like, is it sort of exploration? Is there a particular topic that you really like? For instance, if you're really interested in psychology, does that tie into a feeling of wanting to be connected to people? Is it, just sort of exploring where that goes and what the motivation is behind it? It's really important to uncover those motivations, just so that you can see exactly what it is that's pushing you toward this. And then the final part to this area is uncovering what your values are. So again, a series of prompts, a big list, narrow it down. And this is also a really interesting exercise. Again, I find that when people are consciously aware of what their values are, with hindsight, they can look back and say, right, I see why I wasn't happy in this job. I see why I wasn't happy in this position. And it's interesting to look at your life as it is now and kind of think about, where am I aligned with my values? Where is there a clash? And often it is usually a career or what we're doing for a living. Again, it might be the industry, the particular company, or the role. There could be a clash in personal values and what's expected of you in this role. So that is usually a big light bulb moment for people as well.
You know what? And that makes total sense. Everything that you're saying, I get it. I understand, especially with the alignment and things clashing as far as how you are. But like you said, you're taking people through steps, and the steps are really for them to start digging deep within themselves and learning more about themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just, and it's really that self-reflection. It's really just, as you say, like kind of knowing, who you are, like, who am I? What are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? What am I interested in? What drives me? What motivates me? What is really important to me? And, with values, another interesting thing that comes out of that is you realize that most of the conflicts that we have in our life, especially with people close to us, whether it's a partner in a relationship or family relationships or friendships, if there's been a conflict there, it's usually a clash in values. And it's usually that, somebody values some particular aspect very, very highly. It's very important to them. So they're going to be extra sensitive when that value is clashed or pushed up against. Whereas if somebody else perhaps doesn't rate that particular value as high, it's not as important to them. So they're going to be kind of a little bit more flexible with it. It's not going to matter to them as much. And so that's really interesting as well. And a good example that I find comes up a lot in family relationships and partner relationships and friendships is if somebody has a very, very strong value of honesty to the point where, they would rather have brutal, harsh honesty than have any sort of dishonesty. It's sort of like honesty is the highest value, the most important thing. Whereas if that person is in a close relationship, whatever that relationship is, with somebody who values kindness, then honesty may take a back seat to that. And it may be this person values kindness more than anything. So it's sort of like, well, I'm going to always err on the side of being kind rather than being brutally honest. And you can see how that would create a conflict, and it's not to say that any one particular way is wrong or any one particular way is right, but you can see how somebody who values honesty above anything else may end up being kind of brutally harsh to this person that they love who values kindness, or this person who values kindness may end up being sort of a little bit vague on detail, or sort of, put across a little white lie to keep the peace, or to sort of make sure that someone is feeling happier or feeling better than being really brutally honest. And you can just see how these conflicts come up. So it's a really interesting exercise to dive into.
And how long have you been doing this, Misty?
I've been doing this for a good few years now, probably full-time in the last couple of years, 2 to 3 years. So I also have a 4-year-old, and so I've been sort of juggling, my mum when he was very young, and working on this as well. So yeah, I'm very, very lucky to be able to be working, predominantly online, and being able to juggle that with sort of not having set hours and stuff. So yeah, I feel very grateful for that.
Now, what did you do before this, and what made you decide to become a life purpose coach?
So yeah, that's a really good question. So before this, I was a person that I mentioned at the start of going down these, very different paths and following passions. So from a very young age, I've always felt like there was something that I was meant to do. I've always felt like I had a purpose, and I just couldn't articulate exactly what it was. So I would do the exact same thing. I would get caught up in this idea of, I'm really passionate about this, so this is a path that I'm going to go down. I'm really passionate about this, so maybe this is what I'm meant to do. And I sort of did that over and over. And so I've had a very varied background in real estate and business and retail, all sorts of things. And so it was several years ago that I decided, actually, I need to figure this out, and I need to just get so clear on what it is I'm meant to do, because otherwise it's just going to drive me mad, And so I spent a period of months really actively focused on it, and just living a normal life at the same time, just day job, all that kind of thing. But around that, I would really actively focus on what is it that I'm meant to do. And I tried so many different things. It was just a lot of self-reflection, a lot of questioning and exploration and uncovering, and sort of working out what it is that I'm drawn to and why I'm interested in this, and what that kind of can lead to, and all of those kind of things. And after months of this, I eventually got to a stage. One night before I went to sleep, I was lying in bed, and I sort of almost heard it spoken to me that your purpose is to help others find theirs. And I remember it was just this feeling of total relief, like, oh my gosh, finally, like this is it, and it felt incredible. But then about 30 seconds later, I was like, wait, what does that even mean? Like, what am I meant to do with that? Like, that doesn't even make sense. That's not a thing. So I tried to go back to the drawing board, but you can't unknow what you know. So after a few weeks, I kind of thought, actually, this is it. I have to accept it. How do I make it a thing? And I realized, I started thinking about, looking back, what would have helped me uncover this a whole lot earlier? Like, what was it that I needed to know? What was it that was really, really gave me a big push toward my purpose? So I sort of pulled that process out and started working with a few people, taking them through this process just to refine, like, does this work for you as well? And eventually got to a point where it was a very clear process that anyone, no matter, what their situation in life was, no matter how old they were, what they did for a living, where they lived, whatever, could go through this process and come out of it knowing exactly what their purpose is, in the space of sometimes between 3 and 4 weeks. And it was just, it was incredible to see. And it was really beautiful to help people uncover that. And the second part to that process, as I mentioned, is figuring out exactly what your purpose is. And I always sort of helped people understand that it's okay if your purpose is vague. It's okay if it doesn't clearly indicate, a particular thing to study at uni or a particular job title. Because again, your purpose is not your job. Your purpose is not an occupation. It's that bigger concept, that bigger sort of theme of your life. So when you can figure out what that is, and then work out how you can bring it into life in a way that suits you, it's such an incredible feeling.
Wow. So you say it usually takes between 3 and 4 weeks for you to help them find their purpose. Now, what if you're someone who 3 or 4 weeks and you need more help? How do you handle that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I should make a disclaimer with that, actually. The 3 to 4 weeks is in situations where I'm helping someone, either one-on-one or through a membership or a group coaching program, because it's sort of just obviously having that person there to give a bit of feedback and guidance really speeds up the process. So for people who are doing it more in a self-study, again, still following the same process, but the length of time that it will take them kind of just depends on where they are in their personal growth journey. So that, the 3 to 4 weeks is something that we're able to do, again, with a bit of feedback as people move through the process, because there's always going to be questions that come up. There's always going to be a little bit of self-doubt. There's always going to be sort of like wondering if you're going in the right direction or not. So having that feedback just really speeds up the process.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And that was going to be my next question. Do you have repeat clients, or once they work with you initially and they find out what their purpose is, they move on? How does your program work?
So I work one-on-one with people in a 6-week time frame. I like to work quite intensely and quite quickly, because I've found that, you can make huge, big shifts and huge, big realizations and get really clear on, again, who you are and what you want out of life in quite a short time. So I like to do that if we're working one-on-one in a very sort of concise time frame. So 6 weeks there. I found that when I was working, in that time frame with people, we would make huge amounts of progress, and there would be big transformations and big light bulb moments and a ton of clarity, and which was amazing. And we would come out of it with a very clear plan and a very clear vision, which is perfect. But then I kind of saw, 6 weeks down the track, once they're on their own and sort of implementing this, as you can imagine, often people can quite easily fall off track without that accountability and without that sort of very dedicated and focused guidance. I mean, we all do it, right? So a couple of years ago, I created a monthly membership that provides ongoing support, very affordable. And, we have like group coaching calls, and we have little mini courses that we work through as a group. And then there's modules that help people with spirituality and personal growth and personal development on an ongoing basis. So that has been fantastic for giving people that ongoing accountability in a very affordable way, so that once we've worked together for this like quite intensive 6 weeks, then the membership is there to just carry them along and sort of make sure that they still have that time to check in, and they still have me there to bounce ideas off and just say like, hey, this is something that's come up for me, do you have any ideas, do you have what do you think about this? And so that's sort of the way that I've managed to address that challenge that always comes up in a coaching client relationship.
Wow, makes good sense there, and I like that. And I would assume you're doing this primarily all online now, correct?
Yes, yeah, I do. Everything is online. So again, living in New Zealand, and we live in a very small little community, and so I love that. I've been really grateful to be able to have everything online and easily accessible for people. As you mentioned at the start, the only thing that can be a little bit tricky sometimes is just balancing the time difference, but we usually manage to work it out. So
yes. Wow. So I'm going to move into my questions. Are you ready?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Who or what motivates you?
That's a good question. And honestly, it would be my young son. So he's 4.5, and he absolutely motivates me because I'm very conscious of the example that I'm setting. So I always kind of think, what do I want him to see me doing, and what do I want him to grow up with as being normal or achievable or something that you can do. So yeah, he's a huge motivation for me.
What demotivates you?
Thing that demotivates me is getting caught up in news and politics and that whole kind of cycle. I love politics. I find it really interesting and really fascinating, but I do find sometimes I just get a little bit too kind of far down the rabbit hole, and there's times where I just need to sort of take a step back and just take some time out from that kind of thing, especially when everything's getting a bit crazy.
When was a time that something was said or done to hurt you, but it worked out for your good?
Oh, that's a really good question as well. Probably when I was much younger at school. There were a group of kids at school who we all kind of, just little kids squabbles. And I remember there was one kid in particular who would kind of, if I did something or said something, she would sort of shut me down a little bit. And I remember at the time that I didn't like that. I didn't like that feeling of being sort of, discredited or cut down. But it made me more determined to, achieve the goal that I had spoken about. Like if I said, I really want to do this, and then this kid would be like, you can't do that, you wouldn't be able to do that. And it would sort of just push me a little bit further to think, well, actually, I'm definitely going to do it now. So that, probably a good thing in hindsight.
Yes. What is your fear?
Oh, my fear is definitely, somebody else quoted this, and I'm sorry, I can't remember who it is off the top of my head, but sort of a fear of, dying with your gifts still inside, dying with your message purpose still inside. Like, that's definitely something that really hit me when I first read it. So again, that's something that probably motivates me to make sure that I'm living on purpose and I'm helping other people do that as well.
Is there a time when you wish you had done something that you didn't?
Yes and no. I'm definitely a person that tends to, think things happen for a reason. At the same time, there would be, definitely moments where I kind of think, I should have done this instead, or I should have chosen this path. But in all honesty, I'm pretty grateful for how things eventuated. One thing that comes to mind is probably, going into a career that just wasn't right for me. But again, in hindsight, nothing's ever wasted, nothing's ever in vain. You always learn great lessons. So it's kind of a yes and no answer.
Yeah, I totally agree. So here's the converse of that, if you have it. Is there a time that you wish you had not done something?
Oh, that's a really good question as well. And yeah, do you know what? I'm really big on intuition, and again, really helping people develop their intuition. I think it's such an important part of going through life. And there have been many, many times where I've had a very strong intuition about a situation or an opportunity or a person, and for whatever reason, I've ignored it. I've gone against it, and it might be that I have this intuition that a particular opportunity isn't one that I should take, but my sort of logical mind has been like, you cannot give this opportunity up. You can't pass this up. And as always happens when you go against your intuition, you'll always realize that you should have listened to it. It's there for a reason. So that would definitely be one, not following my intuition.
Yeah, I know about that. What is your definition of success?
My definition of success is living a life that you truly want to live, however that looks. So I'm not so much a person that chases more and more and bigger. I love the small things in life. I love really little experiences. So for me, a successful life is one where I have time to spend with friends and family and the people that I love, where I'm connected with nature and the environment around me, and when I'm connected with purpose and people.
How do you recharge?
How do I recharge? Definitely being in nature. That's a big thing for me. Our little community that we live in is quite close to the beach, and there's lots of bushwalks around. So yeah, just being able to take time out, on the week or weekend, and just go for a walk. It's so nice. It's definitely a way to recharge for me.
What are you awesome at?
Oh, it's a great question as well. I love that question. I think the thing that I am awesome at is helping people to uncover what they already know, or guiding people toward what they already inherently know, and just helping them really bring that out and feel confident in taking whatever appropriate action on it.
What legacy do you want to leave?
It would be about purpose, and for people to understand the value of living a life that is totally aligned with your purpose, however that looks.
Okay, Misty, give the listeners one motivational takeaway.
I would say a motivational takeaway would be to understand that the external things in your life aren't who you truly are, and that you as an individual, you are so much bigger than your career. You're so much bigger than your job. You're so much bigger than, the car you drive or what you have in your bank. The value that you have as a person is so significant and so huge. And I just really would love to encourage people to explore that and see it for themselves and understand, what that means for them.
Tell the listeners where they can connect with you if they need your services or just want to reach out to you on social media. Tell us where we can find you.
Yeah, absolutely. So my website is mistysansom.com, which is SAN for Nelly, SON for mum. And I'm also on Instagram at Misty Sansom. So on my website, you can find lots of freebies to get started. You can find the Find Your Purpose ebook, which is also a pay what you can pricing model. There's lots for people to get started there.
Wow. Well, Misty, I really enjoyed our conversation, and I thank you for taking time out. And if you like Trina Talk, please don't forget to go out to Apple Podcasts to subscribe. Also, who else in your life do you know that needs some motivation and inspiration in their life? Don't forget to share Trina Talk with them. I hope you have a great week. And remember, if you change your mindset, you can change your life. Keep striving, because success is a journey, not a destination.